to another focus on Liberia. As you see, I'm using earphones because my speaker doesn't work. But we'll try to carry on. Please, as you say, share the show. Prof, share the show.
Yeah.
With your friends, and so we can have a very interesting discussion. I don't have any. I don't know where I can share the show. I'm trying. That's why you see me looking down. Okay, so today we are going to have a very interesting discussion. The discussion started with we had done this before. Prof and I, we had talked about Pan-Africanism before, and then we moved on to other things, and then we started to discuss the Barbadian immigration to Liberia. As we discussed it, we found out that Pan-Africanism played a very important role in immigration and in Liberia. And Pan-Africanism was very, very crucial to the formation of Liberia and the building of the country. So today, Prof and I decided that we're going to discuss Pan-Africanism, its origins, its definition, what it entails, who did what, who started what, and how all of these impacted Liberia. So we ask you to join us. We ask you to call your friends. We ask you to share the show as we get into this important discussion, and put your comments in, and we'll listen to it, and we'll read it, and then we'll discuss it. So, Prof, as we did our research, it was interesting to note that, every time people say Pan-Africanism, it's always Kwame Nkrumah or Marcus Garvey, and when I was reading one of the articles, the one that you talked about, it was interesting to know that in the 1850s, right, there was Martin Delany, who was, I would say, the first proponent of Pan-Africanism. He talked about the color line. He talked about the fact that we will have to leave the United States and be in Africa if we're to truly be free. And this man in 1852 even visited Liberia and Sierra Leone. And all along, he kept talking about how Blacks will find their salvation in history and empowerment. And of course, this movement, this genesis of Pan-Africanism was cut short by the American Civil War. But it's very interesting, Prof, when you read Martin Delany and see that he was like almost one of the very first to talk about it.
Yeah, but we need to draw the dichotomy. The concept as a tradition, the concept as a go-to place to actualize or to console ourselves that we were something, should be delineated from the concept as a movement.
As a movement, yeah.
Yeah, as a movement, we are talking about the 1900s. But as a tradition, as a concept, goes back to what you were saying about even the late 1700s. It goes back to the late 1700s. Delany and all those guys started coming in, and then later on coming to the point of Alexander Cromwell and a few others in that.
and W.H. Freeman.
Yes.
And William J.
Yes. So once we understand that, then we will kind of understand that Pan-Africanism has had a long usage in the whole arena of our Africanness. It was in the 1900s that George Padmore and all those guys, from the Caribbean world, and then Kwame Nkrumah and the others started coming in.
But sorry, you go ahead, please. Sorry.
Yeah. So by the It's like, certain concepts float around and eventually they get solidified into movement and a few other things so that people get even more conscious and want to fight a strong battle. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was reading it, I was like, oh yeah, Pan-Africanism, Pan-Africanism, and I think I agree with Isidebi when he says Pan-Africanism has no real consensual definition, but he gave hallmarks
Yes.
of what Pan-Africanism is. Because if you look at Pan-African itself, and as we will discuss, there were a lot of divergence.
Yeah.
A lot of divergence. So Asidebi says that there are attributes, right, to what he termed Pan-Africanism.
Yeah.
And so the first one he says is Africa is a homeland for people of African descent.
Yeah. Okay.
That's one. The second one he says is African or Black solidarity.
Yeah.
Right? Black solidarity. And then he says a belief in a distinct African culture, right? Or African personality, like almost like negritude, the African personality. Yeah. Then he says rehabilitation of Africa's past, pride in Africa's culture or African culture,
and values,
and then belief in a vibrant and glorious united Africa future. So these are the hallmarks. He says that because when you ask people what Pan-Africanism is, they will say, "Oh, blackness, love of blackness," but there are dissenting, not dissenting, but multiple definitions.
Yeah.
But underneath all these definitions are these attributes that you can say, "Oh, yeah, so Pan-Africanism is this, is this, is this." What do you think?
But what I still have a problem with, especially the article you passed on to me, the Tunde article, they talk about celebrating African culture, celebrating African values. And you stop there and say, hey, what are African values? They cannot what? List them. What are African values? They cannot list them. What is African culture? When they go, they talk about one or two things. So again, I guess a lot of the discussions people have of certain things, it may not be about African Pan-Africanism, whatever, but this whole idea of being able to define your terms is so crucial to any discussion. You can find that in argumentation and what have you. Once those attributes are not one of them, as far as the African values are concerned, if you take it from the point of view of Edward Woodman Blyden, the whole idea of community, the sense of community is one important aspect of Pan-Africanism. Collectivity, that is it. Another has to do with the respect for the elderly. This is respect for the elderly becomes another important aspect of it. The idea that we were formed out of nature and therefore nature is part of us and we are part of nature. Those are values so that it even dovetails with a kind of conserving the environment, pollutions and all those things, especially in Liberia with the coming in of multinational corporations and what they did to the environment. Yes, they put some little cash into the coffers of the nation, but what destruction they did to or have continued to do to the environment, a Pan-Africanist must be annoyed by that. So the short of the long is that we say we respect for culture, we respect for values. We must be able to define their values. We must be able to list them. It is the listing of those values that we will, in a sense, set ourselves apart from whichever racial entity or whichever racial group or association.
And also, I see Pan-Africanism almost like a political, cultural, social
Uh-huh.
ideology and perspective. And
Yes.
I don't think they negate each other.
Uh-huh.
I think that I agree with Isidebe when he talks about all of these attributes.
Yes.
And because the overarching thing is blackness,
Yes.
right?
Color. Yeah.
Africans, yeah, because like you said, the color line,
Mm-hmm.
African solidarity with all things black,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting to note that this collective consciousness, I
Yeah.
think, that they had, you know, is the same thing being grappled with today.
Mm-hmm.
People talk about Pan-Africanism as they did before,
Yeah.
and it's true, as you say, it wasn't formalized
Yeah.
as an
Yeah.
ideology,
Okay. I agree on that.
but people still had this. Delaney still said, and he said that the fundamental question will be the question of black and white, and we see it play out now.
Mm-hmm.
We see it play out now, you know. So we had Delaney, and then we had Cromwell, as you say, our own good friend.
Yeah. Yeah. You
But
had
his was
yeah.
more.
Henry
But his was.
Turner. I see you
Yeah, I
had
was saying
Henry Turner.
yeah, Alexander Cromwell.
Cromwell.
But his was more religious,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, because he was like he had a Christian background, like all of them had. But his was more. I think his was more like, oh, we will form, we will support this the Negro Republic, but it will be a Christian Negro Republic.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
But
So that's
you
what
know,
Cromwell said.
again, that is why the people that we celebrate from the past,
Yeah,
you know, the people that we celebrate from the past, there has to be a point where we have to draw a line. Sometimes the line, drawing the line, is going to be a crooked line at all. The very Cromwell, because of the Eurocentric type of thinking, you know,
yes,
the things he said and the things he encouraged led to colonialism
yeah,
in Africa.
yes,
You see?
yes, yes.
They got to, well, they romanticized about the blackness, Africanness, and what have you, when they had not set foot on African soil. No sooner had they set foot on African soil than they saw how better they were from the Africans in the homeland, especially those that were seen as heathens and savages and what have you. So then the encouragement was that, look, white people, y'all go in and do whatever you have to do, because those people are crude. Those people are what? Those people are barbaric. And therefore,
But
you know, once they had the white people had the backing of these people, even if it was just in words, they went to work.
Prof, even as we talk about it, even with what's his name, Henry Turner, is that his
Yes,
name?
Turner, yes,
Because Henry Turner was on the same length as Cromwell.
Yeah.
Henry Turner was so disgusted with America, he moved totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, he moved totally to Africa,
Yeah.
you know. And but Cromwell, according to him, his religious background, you know, he tried to breach this this thing. But you know, Prof, so after that, after you had Martin Delaney, you had Turner, you had Cromwell, you know, and all these people are trying to talk about unity, solidarity, you know, with this Pan-Africanism, because Pan-Africanism is just one branch of Afrocentrism, you know, as opposed to Eurocentrism. Yeah. So I was thinking that, so after that, so they said that between 19, I think between 1950 and 1955, I think, there were a lot of, like you said, there were a lot of meetings, Pan-African conferences, you know, and I was quite taken aback to read that some of our people took part in it. Edward Blyden, George Padmore. Padmore had come from Barbados, right? He was one of the people, I think. Yeah. So they said there was the Pan-African Conference of 1900, which was in London. There was the 1990 Pan-African Conference in Paris. Then there was the 1921 conference, then the 1923 conference, then the 1927 conference.
Yeah, they got to 1945 and they stopped
Yes, in Tanzania.
Yes. And that is very much important. The Tanzania conference happened to be very much important because Walter Rodney.
Yes.
Walter Rodney from Guyana. Yes.
Guyana, yeah.
At that time, he was teaching at the University of Dar es Salaam.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He brought in the Marxist
theory, yes.
Perspective,
Perspective,
yeah. And the idea was, well, we can talk about race because all this time they have been talking about race and what have you. But then he injected a particular strand of the story, which was that, hey, there's classism. There are people who you will call neo-colonialists, all right? Those Africans who had become educated now and were strong in projecting the Western tradition and what have you.
Western tradition,
those will be the ones that will exploit our very own people. Yeah. So we have to be able to interject this whole idea of class struggle in the midst of racism or what have you. Therefore, there are twin. It's as if saying there are twin what? There are twin heads of the devil. If we are not very careful with them, they are going to do Africa in. And sure enough.
And we saw it with Du Bois.
Yes.
We saw it, we're going to talk about that. But that's what he said. He said, do not romanticize this thing.
Yes.
He said this Pan-Africanism that you're doing is a romanticizing, that you should not be doing, and actually it was very interesting because they said that after that, there was a split in Pan-Africanism. There was the American version.
Yes.
And then there was those that were saying this class struggle, we must we must fight. So it was very interesting with that. But it was also interesting to see that all of these conferences that they were doing, Liberia played a very fundamental part. Because like you said, there was Blyden, there was Pat Moore, two Liberians, right? And then of course there was Kwame Nkrumah, that people like to call the father of Pan-Africanism, which really wasn't. There was Sylvester Williams, right? Sylvester Williams was there also, and Du Bois. So all of these people,
that's the thing of I was listening to a program some time ago. It was an FM, a country music FM station. And this lady that morning was actually fussing about the tags that people out of love or some kind of being enamored with other people, they label. Even when the labels, how they give the labels need to be questioned. This is not to take anything away from Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And of course, in Liberia, for some time, just to digress a little, they will always talk about Bacchus Matthew as the father of modern father of, sometimes they don't even put modern.
Multipartism.
Yes, it's when you do that, you show that you don't have a strong sense of history. And that is why every now and then I will not stop saying that this program we are having, even though it is not up to the point where those who want to pass time Friday evening will come, but it has its own importance. Why? Because it is injecting the spirit of the love for history and literature. Every time it is like the waves rolling to the shore and rolling back. So when we have a program like history and literature being spoken about, it should be able to awaken the spirits of a lot of people to always want to go back. Going back to history is not to needlessly unearth some painful aspects and what have you, but to always tell people that to understand your way forward, you must be able to understand your way backward. So all those things brought together should be able to lay the important benchmarks as we move on from the present to the future.
And you know, Prof, one thing is that when people talk about Pan-Africanism, they see it as a unified ideology or belief.
Yeah.
You know, but that will do a disservice to the multiplicity of what is Africa.
Yeah.
You know, because even you don't even agree with people in your own house or your own home.
That's true.
How then would you have, yes, there's this unifying color line, as they call this, color unifies, but within this color, there's also a multiplicity.
Yes.
And you know, and when I was reading, I was thinking how often people who really consider themselves Pan-Africanist or wanting to uplift, right, the Black race, they saw nothing wrong with referring to their own people as lesser.
Yes.
Because if you notice, even when we did the Barbadian immigration, and we will discuss that, one of the things they said was that Latkere and Paul Coffey were great Pan-Africanists.
Yes.
They said that Paul Coffey used to say that, oh, you know, we're going to uplift this race, you know.
Feel sorry for the race. Yes.
But listen to Latkere. You know, they have a Latkere school in Liberia, right? Yeah. And you know, one thing I would say before I go into this is not to make people feel bad or to denigrate people. This is history. You know, so this is not about, oh, you know, us against them. I just want to read Latkere's farewell speech, right? After all of his Pan-Africanism, listen to what Latkere says, right? He's okay. First, he says what? He says that I wish to go to a country, right? This is before the speech. I mean, this is when he came. I wish to go to a country where I shall be estimated by my merits, not by my complexion. And I feel bound to labor for my suffering race, right? Okay. So in 1821, when he was about to leave, right? The First Baptist Church in Richmond, Virginia. He says, I long to preach to the poor Africans the way of life and salvation.
Can you imagine that?
I don't know what may befall me, whether I may find my grave in the ocean or among the savage men or among the savage beasts on the coast of Africa, right? But I would like to go, right? So again, we come back to what we discussed about the Christianizing mission, right? Yeah. And then even Delaney. Remember Delaney? We kept saying, oh, Delaney is the one who started this thing that black. Now listen, Delaney goes to visit Sierra Leone. He visits Liberia, right? And this is like in an 1850 something. So that was after independence. But he goes to England now, right? This is the same Martin Delaney who we're talking about, who says that the greatest question will be the question of black and white, right? Delaney goes to England and he's urging European missionaries to re-socialize Africans and steer them away, right? And he urged Britain to use force against Africans to stem the tide of what he calls indigenous and endemic crisis among the heathens. Now, no problem. So, but then again, one thing you can say is that although the consciousness was there, over time it evolved, hopefully. But it's just the interesting thing that you will call somebody savages, and then you say unity of purpose, unity of blackness. So but
the cynicism, the hypocrisy, and all that is back up in a lot of those statements. If we are unpacking them as we ought to unpack them, And again, it was from a Eurocentric eye. It was through a Eurocentric lens that they were looking at the populations on the continent. So again, as I will always say, even as painful as their comments, as painful as their perspective on indigenous Africa was, one has to cut them some slack by virtue of the fact that when they spoke, they were ventriloquists for the white people. They were the voice with which they were speaking was not the African voice. Was not the African voice. Because if it was the African voice, they would have chosen, even as Hitler, we want to talk about Hitler, they will choose their words. They will choose a little flattering vocabulary as opposed to the unflattering vocabulary they were using. So then, I feel it's like I'm torn between opinions. That's what I'm saying. You see, you cannot hate them completely, and you cannot love them completely. It's just a kind of mild form of people excited about. You talk about how they were celebrating slavery. They were celebrating slavery within the context of the fact that slavery was God's own hand. He used to pull people out of Africa and give them
to Christianize them. To Christianize them. Yeah. So we can look at two different Pan-Africanist events, right, in the making of Liberia. So we can talk. Let's talk about the Barbadians one more time, and then we go on to the Marcus Garvey and Du Bois, and then we can talk about that. So we discussed last week about Pan-Africanism that brought the Barbadians, right? One of the things, because there were many things that pushed them out of Barbados.
I'm glad you're making that point. One of the things, because actually it was, again, as we all agree, it was a romanticized form of the Africanness. But when they landed, go ahead.
No, I was going to say because distance created unity.
Yeah, okay, distance.
When they were, when they were apart, it's like when you meet someone, even during COVID time, and you're trying to date someone on Zoom, right? And you guys are talking, but you're distant, right?
Yeah.
Then you're romanticizing this person, and then you see them in person, and you go like, "Hey, Jesus,
what have I put myself into?" There is it brings in about name. There is a choir name which is Quantum. Of course, they have westernized it to Quantum. One of my he spells his Konton. Is the translation is distance creates love. Distance creates love.
Eugenio is laughing.
But when you all meet now, you just have to prepare yourself that you do not go overboard with your love. You have to be a pragmatic realist instead of being much more of an optimist and blow the skies off with your love and things like that.
Yeah. So the people in Barbados, yes, Pan-Africanism was one of the things that drove them, but it was not the primary one. One of it was that they didn't own land, right? The British people had all the land. And then the British went and changed the law and said, the British said, you cannot vote until you own land. So definitely they couldn't vote. Right? And these were the people who, and Prof, there is something I'm thinking about. The thing is that, remember that what we read when we said that they said that the laws and the condition of the time would not make them, that they would never be equal to the British whites, right?
Relevance is important here.
No, but what was the next thing? But we cannot go back to the degraded masses from whence we came.
Yes.
So, Prof, even in that, you can see that these people were not Pan-Africanists Were you not supposed to uplift your race? You calling the people degraded masses?
Yeah,
Aren't you supposed to go there and lift them up? And so what happened was that first they started to look towards Canada. Because Canada, once the free slaves in the United States went across the border, they were free, right? Yes. And then they tried, so they said at one time, almost, I think, 5,000 had crossed the St. Lawrence River into Canada. But the Canadian government also passed their law. They said, no, we can't have this. You know, it's true that when you come, we wouldn't send you back. But we can't have all these people. It's a destabilizing influence to our country. You know, so they decided that they were not going to make it easy for the blacks to move into Canada. And looking at that, what happened was that even the people, then they said, oh, we can go to Haiti. But then the British then were saying, oh, no, Haiti may be free, but how are you going to get there? Because of course they needed money. Because the Barbadians had to ask for money from the American Colonization Society. And one of the things we discussed when people started to ask us about a manifest and giving us some other Caribbean names that were not on the manifest, just to say that the manifest has names, but there were other people from the Caribbean that came later. You know, not everybody came on the Cora on that ship. The largest number, which were I think 356, came on the Cora, but other people came after. You know,
people were trickling in, and once the first group went, and maybe few letters started going back and forth, others started finding other means to get into the place called Liberia.
You know, Prof, I mean, this is not about Pan-Africanism, but one of the things that really, after reading and going back to the manifest, one of the things that I saw was that on that manifest, they have the man, the woman, or the husband and the wife and the children, and they have the man's occupation, but they don't have the woman's occupation. Like the woman was a housewife. They never had her occupation, which was kind of interesting. But Prof.
No, but how would it not be interesting? The thing about it is that, is it not of late, in the late part of the 1800s, that even the voice of women, the voice of womanhood began to make its breakthrough and all the kind, even in America and what have you. So, and if you go to the Bible, you say they will count the people, and it will be men they're counting, and women and children were not. So that was the order of the day, which sadly, went from one generation to the other.
I want to mention that because when you and I were discussing, I said that Anthony Barclay, who was one of the people who pushed to go to Liberia with his group, and when he got there, after 1 year, he died. And his wife, Sarah Barclay, she was able to raise the family, and all of that family came. Arthur Barclay, the president, and then the nephew, Edwin Barclay. So she did well. But anyway, let's come back, Prof, about this collective identity. Now, one of the things that is funny is that this collective identity was with people in the diaspora. Because people in Africa, why do you need collective identity? You're already there, you know. So when Britain started to change their laws, they didn't have any land for the black people, and the black people wanted to come to Liberia, and of course J.J. Roberts went there, and then Edwin Barclay went there. Not Edwin Barclay, Edward Wilmot Blyden. Yes, Blyden, who say he's a Pan-Africanist now. He's telling the people, we welcome you to come and Christianize the savages. I just feel like this thing is just like, I don't know, but anyway,
it is the hodgepodge. That is a hodgepodge of affinity and all that kind of affinity mixed with animosity and all that kind of thing. That's what it was.
It's because I don't understand how, but it at least you have, then you have the Organization of African Unity, which is like unity. Because they say the liberation of blacks of Africa is the one that will liberate blacks everywhere. But with the Caribbean, you know, the thing is that the people from Barbados and the other places, so when they came, now we talk about land, right? And possession and dispossession. And that word, I'm really interested in identity and dispossession, because you know what, Prof? Yes, something we don't talk about a lot. So these people, when they came, they chose Crossville, right? I mean, they named it Crossville, right? After the in Pennsylvania, as you say. And they were upriver, and it's kind of like they were between the indigenous people and the American Liberians, right? So they were there, and of course they took indigenous children as apprentices and wards. The same thing the British did to them, they did that, right? Because you, of course, you practice what you live. But one thing that will make a very good research paper is the one that talks about these wards, these apprentices, these indigenous people that worked for the Barbadians, American Liberians. What happened to them? Because I'm almost thinking that they can't go back, they can't be equal. So they became these limbo people. What happened to them, Prof? Tell me.
Well, but the thing about it is that their masters or adoptive parents, they became vacuums that sucked them in. They became vacuums that sucked them in. Once they got to this, is the whole thing I look at. God said, "Let's make man in our own image and in our own likeness." These guys came in and said, "Let's make these indigenous people into our own likeness and our own image." So they planted their names on these words, and if you will find some indigenous people who will fight like nobody's business for their adoptive parents, it is those people. It is those words. It is those words. Once they took on their names, in fact, they denied they were ever what they were ever indigenous people anymore. That's part of what has impacted Liberia in a negative way. In a negative way, because once you deny your own roots and you attach yourself to these new people, obviously you fought for them, and if there was anything to pass on the news to them, you were the one passing the news on to them. And so it was these people who kept their own imperial march on the indigenous people, and kind of created this needless up and down class struggle and other kind of thing that's happened in Liberia over time.
And with the I mean, let's finish with the Barbadians. So okay, the Barbadians came, they got their land, they got 50 cents an acre if they wanted more, and they settled. So in effect,
didn't pay for that.
So in effect, Pan-Africanism, Pan-Africanism, Pan-Africanism was reconfigured, right?
Okay, reconfigured.
Yeah, it was reconfigured in a way, because if you look at it, it's not a pure, right, upliftment of the Black indigenous people, right? You're only going to be one of us and worthy of being called a Pan-Africanist, or worthy of being one of us if you become us, right? It's almost like assimilation.
Yeah.
With the French, or assimilados with the Portuguese, right? You have to become us. You know, it was not about let us work together to create this distinct African personality. That's not what it was, right? So, okay, so and then again, of course, when you come to the OAU, they said that the OAU kind of like copy the UN when they talk about the principles of the UN territorial integrity of states. But I always see people talk about, oh, let's go back to the original boundaries, not knowing that the OAU or the African Union decided that these boundaries will be accepted by
Yeah.
all states.
Mhm.
There's no going back. So, so if people are saying, "Oh, let's go back and look for the land Liberia lost," the African Union said there's no land. The boundaries the boundaries that were enforced on us will be respected. So there's no going back.
And
So
however painful that is too, it needs to be accepted, because actually the boundary posts that the colonialists planted, if you try to uproot them, people had already become a little comfortable, for the lack of better word, comfortable looking at the boundary lines. You cannot come up now, and if you do that, it's like uprooting the entire thing, and the poles being there will be kind of better off than uprooting them. Otherwise, it's going to explode. And do you want to be with the explosion, or you want to kind of tame the movement? Huh? That's so you keep them there and work within them, and see, like they say, if life has given you lemon, you are
make
make
lemonade.
lemonade. Yeah, that sort of a thing. That's what it is now. So
Okay, so let's go.
it's more like talking about the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's go now to our own friend Garvey and Du Bois, because that Pan-Africanism impacted Liberia a lot. Right, Prof? So that's what we want to talk about, this Pan-Africanism, because the topic is Pan-Africanism and the making of Liberia. So let's talk. Let's first we have Du Bois, right? Du Bois is this suave, educated African American, right? Whose ideology is the talented 10.
Yes, talking about
right.
That time, yeah.
So you have these people, these educated 10, right, that will lift up the masses. So all of us, we're not lifting up at the same time. These people will be lifted up, the talented 10, and then we will be lifted up. They will lift us up, right? And then you have Marcus Garvey, brash, Caribbean, right?
Yeah,
who believes in
really, specifically a Jamaican. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Zion in Africa. That Africa is for us. We're building this Zion for Africa, right? And Garvey, he had a lot of problems when he came, because he had a lot of problem with the African Americans as well, who saw him as this steamroller. He just want to move. And his what is it called? United Negro Improvement Association. Yeah, it was to take blacks back to Liberia, not just to Africa, Prof. Liberia. Yeah.
One has to keep in mind too that Garvey got on the scene when the spirit of African Americans was at its lowest ebb.
Yeah.
Ku Klux Klan and all those people had done much to demoralize these people, and it seemed that they needed someone to inspire them.
Yeah.
To let them know that they were somebody too. And so with his flamboyance and all that kind of a thing, it got to a point where people who worked for him had to wear uniforms and all that. So there was this kind of fanfare and all that. And for some time, it was like, yes, at least we've got someone in our midst who will uplift our spirits and what have you. And on the other side, jealousy was jealousy. Yeah, well, who is this man? We don't even know where he came from. So when it got to a point where Garvey decided he would let some of his blessings flow into Liberia, Du Bois simply to short circuit him and put him in this place. This is a sad thing. Yes. Yes.
No, but Prof, when when so it even shows you that even in the United States they couldn't get along.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
We're talking about Pan-Africanism.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
and they had different ideologies. Du
Mhm.
Bois felt that you have to educate some, and
Mhm.
then those educated ones will bring the other ones
Mhm.
up.
Mhm.
Garvey said, "My man, we don't have time for that."
And don't leave out Booker T too.
Yeah, Booker T, man.
Booker T.
They're pushing us.
No, don't do that, because actually he was interested in the black. He said these people giving us hard time, my people. These white
Yes.
people giving us hard time, my people. So this thing Du Bois is saying that we should go to college and all that kind of a thing. Those things will come later.
Later.
Those things will come later. This academic type of thing, and please let's start. That's where he used his phrase about let's drop our bucket where we are and
Yeah.
see if we can get something from there. That's how he came up with that. But of course, so Du Bois was kind of between Washington and Garvey. Yes.
Yeah.
So
But when Garvey
Mhm.
approached Liberia, right?
Yes.
CDB King, right? It
Yeah.
was CDB King, yeah, and said we want to bring people, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So then again, you see the Pan-Africanism, the diaspora reaching
Mhm.
out to the
So
homeland, to the
yeah.
motherland,
Mhm.
to say your children, we are coming home.
Yeah.
We are coming home. Do you have a place for us? Ma,
Mm.
come here. You got Bay, you got Matt, you know?
Mm.
And of course, Liberia said, of course you can come, right? But you can't just come like that. You
Yeah.
have to see first. So Du Bois, sent Garcia
Mhm.
for Garcia to go there and look at the lay of the land. And
Yeah.
CDB King was very, very friendly towards him at the time,
Mhm.
and
Yeah. So CDB King was friendly because, of course, he hadn't known all the details and what have you. But when he got to the point of knowing the details, especially through the whisperings of Du Bois, he said, these people that are coming, you know them, and you able them, you better put them somewhere else. I'm talking about Du Bois shortcutting Garvey.
yeah, my I don't know that my laptop is taking of my of his own. Yeah, but before that, when Garvey went, CDB King, I mean, when he didn't go to Liberia, when he sent
Yes.
CDB King welcomed him.
Yes.
Call it, and the wandering children are coming home.
Yes.
But even before Garcia for Paul, when what's his name, Gabriel Johnson, who was CDB King's father-in-law.
Yes.
So Gabriel Johnson was recruited by Garvey
Yeah.
to be the spokesman, the plenipotentiary. We pay him $12,000 a month, and CDB King got so mad, he sent a man to be diplomat in Fernando Po. But I think that the shenanigans that Du Bois did behind the scenes, by talking against Du Bois, Garvey, saying that Garvey was coming to take over Liberia and things like that. But then, and I'm going to read it because
to empower the indigenous people.
Yes.
He put that element there to empower the indigenous people. What in our midst here? That's when he will come empower indigenous people over our dead bodies. Okay, go ahead and read.
No, I'm trying to find the thing because I thought that it was just yeah, okay. So Garcia now, who is the representative for Garvey? His job is to look around to make sure everything is okay, right? And my man, Prof, let me ask you something, you in the people country, that the people will be reading letter, the people that CIA or the MBI or the CID, then you go write the kind of letter. And so he says to the people, he says to Garvey, let me tell you the true conditions in Liberia. He said the American Liberians are the most despicable elements. He said they use the Africans as slaves and employ their education to obtain government jobs in which they practice wholesale stealing, graft, right? But then he cautioned Du Bois. He tells Du Bois, he says, I know you want to get involved in politics, but mask your intentions. Don't tell anybody yet until you get here. And then when you get here, he said modesty and I'm quoting now, modesty and discretion. Remove any possible idea of opposition and will not prevent us having a strong foothold in this country to act as we see best for our own betterment and that of the race at large. Right? So when CDB King and the government got this letter, sorry.
He was so big, he won't believe.
Yeah, but what they did was very bad because they waited. They did not do anything. they waited.
They ambush, political ambush, right?
Yeah, and Du Bois, and Garvey thought that okay, we are ready now. He sent his engineers and and money, and when they got there, the government seized everything.
What?
But you know what? Du Bois played a very bad role. And that's what we're talking about, the splintering of Pan-Africanism. Because Du Bois made the president to Calvin Coolidge to send him to Liberia for inauguration, for the inauguration, and he went there. And the sad thing is that Garvey never got to go to Africa, but Du Bois went, and Du Bois told them, say, oh, Garvey's coming to take your country, he's to bring people. And at that same time, that was when Firestone was trying to come to Liberia. So of course, then people started to say, oh, but what kind of land you didn't come and give to Garvey? If we gave Garvey land, what kind of land we give Firestone? And all of those things played something in it. So they said that, but here's the thing about Du Bois' trip to Liberia, Prof. We come back again to this thing about what is Pan-Africanism. I think Isidebi is right when he says it doesn't have one definition. Because Du Bois goes to Liberia. He's feted, he's living with the people. And Du Bois, listen to what he says. He says, when shall I forget the night I first set foot on Africa's soil? I, the sixth generation in descent from my stolen fathers, right? And then he talks about the mansion that he was living in with 5 generations, with a compound of endless native servants. So he sees nothing wrong with that, right? And then he says that and then when he went back, he told Coolidge, he said he painted a rosy picture of a country which had a quote extended her democracy to include natives on the same terms as Liberians. What does that mean? To include natives on the same terms as Liberians? Were they not Liberians?
No, they were not at the time. You know that now.
No, but no. What I'm saying is that did he not see the contradiction in this?
That learned man was not learned in that context. Mind you now, he was a sociologist. He was a sociologist who should have what? Known better. He was a sociologist who should have known better. Anyway.
Yeah, but one of the other things, Du Bois was a very complicated man, because when he heard that Firestone was going to Liberia, you know what he did? He wrote Firestone, remember? And Firestone never acknowledged. But listen to what he told Firestone. He said to Firestone that he must use trained American Negroes, right, to have a more normal development. Okay. So he's not saying, oh, you should use the indigenous people, you should train Negroes. And the sad thing about Garvey begged Liberia not to give Firestone to Liberia, not to give them land. Garvey begged them, and they vilified him. And yes, then they took his $50,000 money They took his land, they took all his equipment, everything from Marcus Garvey. Yeah. So okay, so
Comments.
yeah, so we should read comments. So let me see. Can I go back? I don't know. This my computer is okay. So we start reading comments. Elizabeth Victoria Dempster says, welcome back. I'm watching now, and blessings to all you beautiful people. Okay, who's Emmanuel Jackson said exactly, Dr. Nangwe, we need the love of the troubadour in Africa. So that's why he says. Yes. River says Pro said Pan-Africanism is just a myth. It doesn't exist in reality. African leaders abandoned Mohammed Gaddafi when he most needed them. Which is true, Prof. Which is true. You know. Eugenia said good evening. And I always say that, if you remember when they were trying to move Gaddafi, who were on the panel? Nigeria and South Africa, and they voted to remove him. So what do you guys think of the anti-Pan-Africanist sentiment rising in the West and on YouTube?
Well, they have to be anti that because it is threatening their own interest too now.
Yeah, and Prof, like you said, the Organization of African Unity, and then you have these splinter groups. Of course, you have ECOWAS, you have SADC, you have COMESA. You have all these things. So the thing is that I think Pan-Africanism is something that should be practiced continually, right? Because it's like if you're having an election or something, and you're inviting people, invite people not just from the AU. If you're from Sierra Leone, you're having your election, invite people from Liberia, from Guinea to come and watch your election. I always say that, traveling, Prof, I have seen some of the best schools, right? Some of the best universities, Botswana, Namibia, South Africa. South Africa universities are considered some of the best. And then many Liberians say, oh, go America. Oh, go England. But you could also go to these countries. And of course, there are some that are doing it now. But I think that's the essence of Pan-Africanism, right? Uplift your race. Now there's other core of collective consciousness. I guess collective consciousness of color, but I don't think collective consciousness of shared experiences, because, Prof, I think that Pan-Africanism evolves. There's no real shared experiences now. You have people who are very wealthy who never even bothered about, oh, I'm Black in a strange place, because they are cushioned by their wealth. Those people don't have shared experiences as the person in Africa. So I guess what I would like to ask is there a place for a new Pan-Africanism, one that will appeal to this time? Do you think, Prof?
No, there's some fluidity. There's some fluidity about how we approach Pan-Africanism. In fact, talking about the collective consciousness, shared experiences, and what have you, it may not be in the context of economics. It may be in the context of the appreciation of people's personhood. One of my the areas of work I talk about, there is this lady, when I'm going into to have coffee, I don't know whether it's correlated or whatever it is, but a couple of times that I've gone in there, as soon as I show up and she makes sure to lock her to slam her door closed. It may be correlated.
Really?
Yes, it may be correlated. So I can, but again, I've always told people that, look, I am confident in myself. I am confident in my personhood. It is not to say that I'm better than any other person, but I'm saying I am human being. I'm Nagbe, I'm Kru, I'm Liberian, I'm African, and what have you. I enter a place, I don't, whatever is on your face, whatever you're doing, that's your business. I will not let it bother me to say, well, maybe this person is doing it out of racism. That person's cup of tea. I go in there and do what I have to do. So the same thing here is that collective consciousness and what have you. We're talking about shared experiences. We get to that point and we find out that there are other people. I don't care how wealthy you are or how bookish you are and what have you. Once your skin is black, people will tend to have these funny feelings. Those people who are supposed to be, who see themselves as a mighty race, they will look at you as if you are nothing. But that should not what? That should not be anything except, of course, you are bringing knife to my throat, and I have to push it back because that is what is essential. It is about survival, and I have to push that back. Otherwise, and that I couldn't give a two-hand whatever you are thinking about me. So,
But
as far as the shared experiences are concerned, you have to know that once you are black, these people, many of these white people, it's not all of them, many of these people, they think they are better than you. And so that is a specific shared experience. So all those little things here and there, you want to ask yourself, what do you mean by shared experiences?
that's what I'm saying, because like we talk about Molefi Asante, the one from Temple University, talking about this collective consciousness, right? And so it's like you must have this consciousness of being always the other.
Yes.
And my question was, or is, I'm talking about a shared consciousness that blacks have, right? Like you can't walk down the street, right, without trepidation, right? Okay, but my question is, you're saying that somebody locks their door, but another black person could come and see nothing wrong with that person locking their door. Another black person could walk down the street and see nothing wrong with walking down the street. So my question is, what is this definition of shared consciousness? Because I could go in a store and say, excuse me, I would like to buy Pepsi. And the person could look at me and not say anything and push the Pepsi to me. And I could think nothing of it. And you could go in a store and the same thing happen and you think. So I'm saying, where is this sharing?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that because this person doesn't say anything, that's the thing because this person doesn't say anything doesn't necessarily mean that he or she doesn't think anything. That's what I'm saying. It depends on the reaction. Some might be vocal, but some might be reserved in moving away, not so much of not knowing what that person did. Like I'm talking about this person who likes to and what have you. I never make noise about it. We talk about somebody and I will talk about it and we laugh and move on. But others will say, excuse me, why would you always do this particular thing? Well, so it depends on the degree of reaction. That's what I'm trying to say. It depends on the degree of reaction. It doesn't necessarily mean that this person did not recognize what's taking place. I remember, one of the things that Obama said in his race speech when he was a candidate. You are passing somewhere and someone rushes to pick up his this or pick up his that or locks door or locks the car door or home door and what have you. Those things happen. It depends on how you go about them.
William King say, why couldn't Garvey go to another African country?
Oh God.
Yeah, I think for me, I think that yes, there were other countries, right? But I think that Liberia, just how the Barbadians chose Liberia, Liberia was a place of refuge for people from all walks of life. Liberia, where it was an American colony or protectorate. That is my belief. I don't know why. I don't think that other countries would have been amenable to him like CDB King and Liberia was in the beginning. But that's just me.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it too is that how many countries in the name of country, the formalized way of talking about country, how many were they in that part of Africa? Liberia's name was kind of ringing at that time. So it was like it has status. And if one did business there, it will invite a lot of people coming into the picture. Remember that Ghana and other places says we're still
colonized.
Even the nearby Sierra Leone. So going to Liberia was 8. What is it?
That's not true. I mean, I just don't agree with this with this,
What?
because if you must, Garvey's success is not because he came to the United States, because Garvey was also educated like the Barbadians and people before, So I doubt whether, I mean, if he was successful because he came to the United States, then what count for the unsuccessfulness of Du Bois and the others?
What, even Unia being modeled on Tuskegee,
That's not
again,
true.
that is debatable.
That's not true.
Mhm.
That's not true. That's not true. Uh, um. So is that abolitionist abroad? Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
What,
Read.
read about American blacks and the making.
If there's any book you should read, Carrie Bantam's the Barbadian Immigration to Liberia. That's a masterpiece.
Okay.
Thoroughly researched.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm glad to see you for the first time, Doc. Your book set the foundation for many Liberians today. Emmanuel Sherman, promise you.
Oh my God, Emmanuel.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is that the Pan-Africanism that was envisioned in the past cannot exist now. Conditions are different. There are some attributes that, of course, we carry, but even within the elite of Pan-Africanism, there was division, right? Because and then you come now to the new age, which is the diaspora, Africa, people going back and forth, this migration, immigration, mobility, and things like that. And one thing I would like to say is that sometimes mobility comes with agency. Who gets to move? Who travels? How do you travel? What's the mode of transportation? All of those things are kind of bound up in this new post-emancipation, and the more I discuss this with you, the more it's clear that post-emancipation of freedom comes with a lot of unfreedoms.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's totally free. Even the Barbadians, they were free, but they did not have mobility.
Yeah.
Right? Their mobility depended on the American colonization society bringing them to Liberia.
Yes.
So there's this almost, I don't know, I don't know how to call it. It's incestuous. I'll call it incestuous relationship between the master and the formerly enslaved person. A sort of interdependence. And of course the formerly enslaved person also knows how to play the game. Don't forget that former slaves were not just docile people sitting down waiting.
They were human beings.
There were revolts. There were revolts.
People, not Turner, all those people there.
There is one about the Tiro. Prof is written by it's called, I forgot what is it called. It's written by Greg Grandin, and that book, it's about this slave ship, right, that was on its way to the New World or whatever they call it, right? And the people who were enslaved now, they took over the ship.
Yeah,
they killed everybody in the ship. They kept the captain alive. And what they were trying to do, they were trying to find their way back to Africa, but they got grounded right in a little alcove. And this guy who was a seal hunter, he was hunting for seals. His crew was angry. They wanted to leave. They wanted to mutiny, and he saw this ship, and he went to help them, right? And when he went to help them, the blacks that were on the ship, they greeted him nicely. The captain was there, and the blacks they couldn't move from around the captain. They were just around the captain, and he started to think to himself, "Oh, these people must love this man. They are treating him nicely, Come to find out when he had brought food and water on the ship, and he was about to leave, and the captain managed to scream and say, "Help me," or whatever. And then he realized that these Africans had taken over the ship, and of course he called his men, and they slaughtered people. They slaughtered people, and then they took some of them to the New World and punished them, disemboweled some of them, even though they took some of them to court. And that book is so horrific. And one thing that I think about is that when he entered the ship, he said there were women sitting on the floor singing to their babies, right? And I always think, when they were slaughtering the people on the ship, what happened to those women and babies? you know. And so people forget that these people who were enslaved, they had agency in Africa. You know, they were not just, you know, we had a debate the other day when I kept saying that they took men, women, and children from Africa. They didn't take slaves from Africa. Those people became enslaved on the ship. And when they landed in the New World, they became slaves. And people say, no, they took slaves from Africa. No, they did not. They took human beings, men, women, and children, you know. But then, but to say they took slaves, you are putting them, you are relegating them to people who are docile, who don't think for themselves. These were people with agency. Remember, they lived on plantations and were able to survive years of horrific abuse. You know, so the thing is that now that we've come almost full circle, what is this new Pan-Africanism that must be formulated or created for such a time as this?
One of the things things that continue to persist have to be related to first justifying, recognizing your personhood and trying as much as possible to justify it. The first thing is knowing the self. It is around the self that so many other things can happen. So here, the idea you will allow anyone to put you down must be resisted in any form or fashion. That is the first order. And then, of course, to know that you have roots. You've come from a place. You've come from Africa. You've come from a continent. That's where you've come from. So all those little things that are attached to personhood, they must be emphasized. The family must be emphasized. The collectivity must be emphasized. So those things, as far as the thinking process is concerned, you know, very many people outside of the interest that they have, there might be the divergence of opinion, the divergence of ideas and what have you. But those core things that are some of which I just mentioned, they must become the centerpiece. They must become the centerpiece of life forward. They must become a centerpiece of life forward. It is in those things that continuously talking about Africa and making sure we talk about the economics, we talk about the education and what have you, will come into the picture.
Yeah. Larry Davis says, why did Liberia write the draft charter for the OAU?
Why wouldn't they?
Why wouldn't they?
Why wouldn't Liberia be? When Liberia was at the center of independence in that place, why wouldn't they?
Well, Prof, yeah, you know, I mean, the OAU, I mean, yes, they may have drafted it, but it was an import from other countries as well. You know, they had two groups, the Casablanca group and the Morovia group.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think what he's saying, a draft, why shouldn't, I'm not asking the question, except, of course, he explains himself. Why shouldn't Liberia, when Liberia was at the forefront of a lot of things, a lot of African nationalists passed through Liberia to go wherever they wanted to go. Liberia gave, even as poor as Liberia was, Liberia gave money and all that. What's that now?
They were slaves brought by Europeans from your African leaders. Don't sugarcoat that. I'm not even going to mention this other thing yet, because we've gone through this again and again until I'm tired now. It's like it's tedious as a twice told tale. You know, A. Daniel, shared consciousness is more cultural than it is a race thing. I agree, though. Prof, in a way, I agree with Daniels, you know, because this shared consciousness, that's what I'm trying to say. You know, remember one time we discussed that sometimes it seems as if the only thing you share with somebody is the color of the skin. You know, it doesn't mean that you are unified in thinking or something. So I think that, you know, this Pan-Africanism, we come back to the question now, what should be this new Pan-Africanism that we should have?
We should fully understand the old Africanism, Pan-Africanism before we talk about the new Africanism. That's all I say. Which is,
should it be?
Go ahead. Should it be?
No. I was just making fun to say, should it be like Du Bois or should it be like Garvey? Yeah. So the people never grapple with social media. They never grappled with, you know, this bombarding every day with information and things like that. They never really grab, I mean, they sat down to really think. So this new Pan-Africanism, people use the word Pan-African. What is it? We've tried to define it, right? We had this, for those of you who came late, we have hallmarks of Pan-Africanism, as Isidore says. And I will say it one more time for those of you who came late. Pan-Africanism has no real consensual definition. The attributes are Africa as a homeland for people of African descent, solidarity, belief in a distinct African personality, rehabilitation of Africa's past, pride in Africa's culture, and belief in a vibrant, unified African future. Those are the hallmarks. Yes. So, Prof, what is this new one that we're going to do? So, what is this new ideology of Pan-Africanism?
I just said it. It's got to revolve around the personhood of the African. The personhood of the African. First, that we are human beings just like any other human being. And in that process, too, we pay respect to collectivism. We pay respect to, that is, community. We pay respect to the elderly, because it is from them that we draw wisdom, and a few other things. As far as ideas are concerned, there will be multiplicity of ideas because there will be multiplicity of interest and world view. What is this now?
Yeah, he's saying that Pan-Africanism should focus on trading, or African countries should focus on trading more with each other to develop the African market. This will be tangible goals to aspire for. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with him. And now we have the Africa Free Trade Agreement. So hopefully that would happen.
But the thing about trade is that, especially in these days, goods and services are so diversified that we cannot cut out a clear block of marketability and hold on to it. We will, if we do that, we are trying to be idealistic, but we have to trade with other people that world view. If we are saying that Africans will be our first line of customers, okay.
Yeah, Prof, the thing is that it comes to building capacity, right? Because if you say we open the markets now, let's trade. What do you have to trade? What does Liberia have to trade? And the reason I'm saying that is because Botswana, right? Botswana is one of the largest meat producers to Europe, right? But Botswana went and said, what are the specifications to be able to send meat to the European market? And they were able to meet the specifications, right? So when you say, okay, we want to be able to trade, what is it you're going to trade?
Yeah.
Another thing is that if you look at the railways, right, for a long time, it was that if Liberia has a railway line, or if Tanzania has one, let's say they were neighboring countries, the railway was not the same, because one was using measurements of England and one was using measurements of Britain. So you have to, at the border, you have to unload and then put back on the thing. So all of those things, the transportation system, because like Africa is a product of colonialism, different colonial powers. So all of these things have to, that's why the African Development Bank is focusing on road connectivity, but also you must have something to trade. You must have laws in place, but you must have something to trade. If right now South Africa says we are not going to buy anybody's mangoes, canned mangoes, except Liberia. Liberia cannot trade with it because we don't have the capacity to do that. So we have to build capacity within our own countries, So all of those things come into place to build. And I agree with the person who talked about that, because the new Pan-Africanism now, I agree with Walter Rodney, it's not time for romanticizing Pan-Africanism. We need concrete things on the ground. We need road connectivity. We need trade. We need things like that, because through building those things, we will be able to move ahead, Yeah. So what else, Prof?
You still have some comments. You still have some comments. What are
Oh,
some of
okay.
these comments?
Let me see. Unification of the people of African descent remains the centerpiece of Pan-Africanism. In fact, it is the key ingredient in this movement. We agree with you, but the thing is that we unify. What are some of the things that can unify us? Is what I guess we are trying to talk about. Yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. So I think now we can, of course, to a certain extent, trade with the outside world because one cannot shut off themselves from the outside world. Prof. I mean, this is Pan Africanism, so we shouldn't really move away from the topic. But something like AGOA, right? African Growth and Opportunity Act, right? So America says, okay, sometimes when you buy your jeans from Lesotho, I mean from Gap, you see at the back made in Lesotho, and you're so happy, right? That oh, it's made in Lesotho. But in AGOA, is rules of origin, right? So they're saying that you can make the jeans in Lesotho and send it to the United States. But what's happening? Lesotho doesn't have the capacity to have all these factories to make jeans and other things, right? So a country like China comes in and say, okay, we'll employ your people and you will make the jeans and you will send it to. So the rules of origin, it comes from Lesotho. That's the rule of origin. It must come from that African country. It does come from there. But you don't own the factory. So the rules of origin has to be redefined, just like Pan-Africanism, to say we need to build capacity. And I agree with our friend that this new Pan-Africanism will be more economically driven, Prof. It's not ideological anymore. It's going to be more economically driven. But then again, I might be wrong. So I'll leave it to you. What? There's nothing called African American. We are all Africans brought here as slaves and had our children here. Teach the children who don't know themselves. Well, I keep saying that slaves were not brought to America. People were brought to America and they were turned into slaves. So I don't know what you mean by slaves. We were brought as slaves. Africans came, yes, and there's nothing such as African American. I agree with you. I don't know where the point of contention is coming from. We're all Africans. But I am saying that this shared consciousness is not one that has a commonality, because the man who's in Lesotho does not have that shared commonality with the man from Kentucky. You have the color of skin, but not the shared experiences. So we can't keep going through what they say. We can't keep beating a dead horse. Yeah. So, Prof, I think we should start wrapping up because we could be here all day, and really it's very interesting to talk to people, right? But again, we should see the rising population as an opportunity to enrich the continent, just as the Chinese did. But of course, individual countries must increase their capacity, but to then take advantage of. Yes, I agree with you. We that's what they're talking about, that we have to work together. Yeah, regional trade, intercontinental trade, that's something that we need to do. But how many of us want to do it? I mean, Prof, I went to Liberia and I was shocked that people were buying the Chinese furniture with is it called famaka, right? When they had wood, and here the Amish furniture, when the people make the Amish furniture with solid wood, it costs so much we can barely afford it, right? And the Chinese furniture don't cost a lot. But now in Liberia, people are fighting for Maka furniture when they could get good African wooden furniture, and that Maka, when the sun comes up, it peels, so we have to
That's
take pride.
status now. These things, it takes all the kind
No, it's true, and another thing, Prof, is that Mr. Davis, is not that we don't agree with you on some things. It's just that we have to always look at the underneath of things, because like the Pan-Africanism, Prof, we want our leaders to be Pan-Africanists. It's not that we don't want our leaders to be Pan-Africanists, and people forget that the African Development Bank, for those of you who don't know, the largest foreign shareholder in the African Development Bank is America. And then you have Britain, and then Japan, not China. So when you're talking about, you see China, like, oh, China, Think about it. The largest foreign shareholder of the African Development Bank is America. Think about things like that, and then say to yourself, who is the largest shareholder in the bank that is African? It's Nigeria. So let's try and build this capacity so that we don't need too many foreign shareholders in the African Development Bank. And Prof, we have gone through this again. This Pan-Africanism will not work if we don't believe in it. Because look at the Francophone countries. They are taking their reserve and putting it in a bank, in a bank of France. And France is using that money to build France. If you took that money and put it in the African Development Bank, think of what could be done in Africa if people, if governments, even our government would stop putting money in foreign banks. Think of it. So the Pan-Africanism must start from the beginning. It must start from, oh, I will buy my sister thing because she made it here. I will buy this, and it will build up.
Of course, you have to think about quality and all those things too. So it's not because a sister is selling it. You got to emphasize quality. The short of the long is that first and foremost, it is very much important for us to understand the context of a lot of the things that we are talking about, the policies and all those things. We've got to be in the continual habit of exploring information and then using the information to establish knowledge, the knowledge that we'll use to push a lot of things forward and what have you. Yeah. Horton was
Yeah, we know that. Yeah, he was the founder of the African Development Bank. Yeah. So, Prof, let's talk about
winding.
You still haven't given us the definition of your Pan-Africanism.
Well, the thing about Pan-African, first of all, Pan has to do with all African inclusiveness and what have you. And what I emphasized earlier is what I'm emphasizing now. Because Pan-Africanism has a lot of strands to bringing it together, we have to take the core aspects of that concept to be able to run with it. If we understand the core concepts, then of course. So if we are talking about Pan-Africanism, I'm talking about first the blackness of, so it has to do with color. It has also to do with key things that it kind of enhance the Black personality, how we respect one another, how we create a sense of community, how we make progress, not out of denigrating other people, but holding one another and moving forward. If we have those core, then all other things can come into the picture.
Yeah, I agree with you, Prof. I think that oftentimes we, and we always say this, that when we're ending the show, we say lift Liberia up. Larry Davis have shown us also today that he has brought things that maybe a lot of us did not know about the OAU, about the African Development Bank. But we always end by saying that, this little country we call Liberia is like a beacon for all the Blacks oppressed everywhere. It was a place where people could come and a man could finally be a man, as they say, or a woman could be a woman. This country has really suffered. Can you imagine that when they were carving up, when the Berlin Conference, when they were carving up Africa, this country was able to say, let me here. You're not going to touch me. Like we talk about, they've taken our land. They took the Galenas from us. They took so many things from us. They punished us. E.J. Roy had to die because of British loan. The loan was so bad for the country, that the poor man, what kind of 7% or 17%? And then you want to take the interest out before you take the loan. People were really bad.
They disemboweled that loan. They disemboweled that loan to get it to us. It was just mean.
Yeah. So there are so many things that were going on behind the scenes. But we always say, this country is one that we should really be proud of its history. It has stood the test of time.
Mhm.
It has it's still standing.
Yes.
We talked about we talked about when the indigenous people came, and they settled. We talk about the settlers. We're going to talk about the recaptive slaves that came. We talk about the Barbadians, so those four different groups. And like Prof says, the wards and the apprentices, they were kind of like absorbed into the
Mhm,
Americo-Liberian
mhm,
group, things like that. So we come here as always, not to pick fuss with anybody, although sometimes it can get testy. We come just to discuss. We do a little research. We find primary sources, and we want to talk to you or have a conversation with you about things that um, we Prof and I we've discussed. I mean, like I said, I read Carrie Banton's book, Barbadian Immigration to Liberia, and it's really interesting. So we decided to talk about that, and Prof and I we talked about it for I think 2 days now. We realized that the Pan Africanism was reconfigured on the ocean. That Pan Africanism is not as pure as people think it is. Even when you say African unity, what does African unity mean? Do the leaders even understand what African unity is? Do you understand what African unity is when you don't speak to your neighbor or you don't speak to somebody because you're a different tribe? So is this Pan Africanism all encompassing, or are there crevices or fissures in it? So, Prof, my Pan African brother, we've come to another ending.
yeah.
The 1 hour show gone to 1 hour 30 minutes. Now, I think Anthony finished with us. He has run away. So, Prof,
They're begging us to go.
yes, yes. So you, yeah, and it was sad that Garvey never got to see Liberia.
Mhm,
The interesting thing is that Du Bois realized what Garvey said
mhm,
at the end. Du Bois left the United States and settled in Ghana.
yeah, that's where
Du
his
Bois
place.
died in Ghana.
Mhm.
So what Garvey was saying back to Africa, even when they imprisoned Garvey for his little black star ship,
Mhm.
his fraud, he never gave up on his dream.
Yeah.
He never gave up on his dream. So he did not get to see Africa, but Du Bois, who put all these challenges in his way,
Mhm.
Du Bois finally realized what Garvey was saying all along, and he left America. He settled in Ghana. He died in Ghana. They have a W.E.B. Du Bois Institute.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. I hope they have a Garvey Institute in Liberia.
We'll find it. Maybe our program will produce the desire for that to happen.
Yeah, and Prof, and one thing is, I always wonder, what happened if what happened if Garcia letter hadn't been found? Maybe it would have been a different story. No, it's true, Prof.
Fate has a way of playing games with human beings.
Yes, yeah, it's true, Prof. Because maybe if they didn't find that letter, they could have welcomed Garvey, and Liberia could have been on a different trajectory.
Something
You
else would have
know,
gotten into the mix because these guys
something else. Yeah,
were people just keep anyway.
yeah. But anyway, Prof. We are. Do you think Pan Africanism can work in the 21st century with all those prejudices going on in Africa? I always say that yes, the EU. People always say, "Oh, we need one language in Africa." No, the EU doesn't have one language. Everybody got their own language, but they work together as a block, as a group.
Well,
You know,
even the infighting in that place. Anyway,
yeah, but I mean, like I said, you even fight with people in your own home, especially when you
so,
get teenagers. So I don't know, Nathaniel, if there's ever going to be a unified, solidified Pan-Africanism, but it's something we can strive for. As Prof always say, it's aspirational,
mm,
right? And my friend agrees with me. It just needs to have some tangible goals to aspire to.
yeah, that's why you have
Yeah,
to have core pillars. You need core
yes,
pillars. If you want to
pillars.
if you want to spread it out, then there will be a lot of confusion. Just find core things around which a lot of these things can
Yes.
revolve without the, when you have those core, then there is a kind of elasticity that will always make things bounce back and come to wherever they have to come.
Would you consider Garvey a success? The union movement faced expulsion by the Liberian government. Shortly, he was indicted on wire fraud and tax evasion. Oh, go read about Garvey, man. Mm-hmm. That thing was a trumped-up charge. Mm-hmm. They were not going to let that man do anything. And when he tried to get money for his Black Star ship, they put all these Trump charges on Garvey. So go read about Garvey. Yeah. He was indicted for wire fraud and tax evasion because the American government was against Garvey. Please go and read that. You know. And the union movement was expelled by the Liberian government because of the letter and because of Du Bois. Du Bois told them that the people were coming to take over the land, and Garvey was against Firestone. And look at Firestone now. Wasn't he right? So Garvey warned us about Firestone. So yes, he was a success, I think. You know, but about the tax evasion and the wire fraud, that thing was a trumped-up charge. You can go and read about it.
Some of these things are Arabian Night Tales, so we can't just finish them.
Yeah, I know, Prof, but it came on. Yeah, so, okay, Prof, I think it's Friday night. People want to unwind. It's cold here. I cooked pepper soup. So I'm about to go eat. Yes, Prof.
Bon appetit. Yes. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So you want to have some last comments on Pan-Africanism?
No, but it's not just Pan-Africanism, Jackie. It's on inspiring ourselves to continue reading. That's at the heart of it, Pan-Africanism, this and that. Please, with this program, one of the things we want to make sure come out is that people should be greedy to read.
To read.
You have to have a certain avarice to be able to learn new information. And when we come here, we talk about those things so that when you leave, you go back and read more. It is only reading, reading that is going to keep us going. Reading that will keep us going. Knowing about our history, not as Liberians alone, but as Africans and even as world citizens. We've got to have the eagerness to read and learn more.
And you know, Prof, the Liberian Studies Conference Association is having its conference, and it's on Liberia at 175 years, right? Reassessing the past and charting new futures. It will be held April 23rd in Houston, Texas. Okay. Right? And it's very important history. You know, people say, oh, the thing has passed. But why do you think they have museums in this country or around the world dedicated to the past? Because
I will not to cut you off. I will not even pay attention to those statements. I just hear them and move on because I have ears.
Yeah, because history is important. You know, Chinua Achebe said, if you don't know where the rain began to beat you, you will not know where you should start to dry yourself off. So history is very, very important. You know, in Liberia, I was taught by some of the best. I was taught by Chioti Pao Shaduri, Dr. Shaduri. Oh, and he just used to sit down and the words would just come out, the history, you know, and of course, Alpha Bar, the late Alpha Bar, who was one of the great historians, right? Now we have William Allen and we have Augustine Corner and others who are able to share with us, and we will ask some of them to come on the show sometimes. But you know, like we always say, this is the literary hour. We started off by discussing literature and books, but history is intertwined with literature. So that's how come sometimes we talk about history, sometimes we talk about literature, you know. We want to say to you, thank you for joining us. Thank you for so the last question. Do you think President King was naive by signing this Firestone deal even after the revelation of the letter? Yeah, but the letter was not about the Firestone. The letter was about so Du Bois, Garvey has sent his second in command, his deputy, to live in Liberia to see how things were in Liberia. So the guy wrote Du Bois to say that these American Liberians, they're treating the people like slaves, they are not good, and we know you are coming to fix things. So that's what the letter was. The letter was not about Firestone. But Garvey wrote to say, please do not allow Firestone to come. Now, whether President King was naive is not, I don't know, but you must know also that at that time there was what's his name, Taft, dollar diplomacy, and Calvin Coolidge, right, Prof? And those American presidents were putting pressure on Liberia at the time, you know. I think President King was under pressure at the time from higher powers, you know, because Liberia was still technically subservient to the United States at that time. We were not, how do you call it, the sovereignty, impacted sovereignty, or how Dr. Chanduri call it, truncated sovereignty, truncated sovereignty. Okay. Okay. Prof, want to say thank you, and we'll stay waiting for your last words. It's almost 2 hours now, Prof.
I just I just said my piece already.
Okay.
Which is, you know, we have to take interest in reading. We have to take interest in always seeking to uncover information and what have you, and remain solid, learned people. Okay.
Yeah. And we always end by saying to all of you, you know, lift Liberia up. It's true that sometimes Liberia has stumbled, fallen, gotten up, stumbled, fallen, gotten up. But we always say to you, lift Liberia up. I tell people, sometimes I've been ashamed for Liberia, but I've never been ashamed of Liberia. So we ask you to always, you know, think about where Liberia has come. Think about the troubles, the trials, and Liberia is still standing. 175 is not something to sneeze at, you know. So we will celebrate Liberia in all its glory, in all its despair, in all its confusion. We ask you to mask up and let your loved ones and relatives mask up. And I said to somebody already, take the vaccine, and somebody wrote that they were not going to take the vaccine. So I will leave that up to you, but I will say be safe. You know, be safe, and we hope you'll join us next week. We will decide, Prof and I. Sometimes I hide from Prof because I get tired. Prof is there to stop me. Yeah. So I want to say thank you for joining us today, and we will end again by as we say, Pan-Africanism should be something that is celebrated by all. And we want to celebrate Pan-Africanism and a new Pan-Africanism, I think, right, Prof? A new Pan-Africanism, one that is with economics involved. I agree. I agree with that. Yeah. So thank you for joining us, and we always leave with the song. Whether you are from the Barbados, whether you are from the Carolinas, America, whether you were there when they came, whether you for Marcus Garvey, whether you for Du Bois or Booker T, we're all Liberians. So we will close with that song.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. United all we want. Liberia, oh. United all we want. Liberia,